Hello and welcome to Beyond Stress and Overwhelm in the Busy Family. I'm your host, Dr. Leonaura Rhodes. Thank you so much for joining me today. And today I'm going to be talking to you about stress. But first, to tell you a little bit about me. I'm Dr. Leonaura Rhodes, and I am a health and happiness coach. And I am author of a book called Beyond Soccer Mom, Strategies for a Fabulous Balanced Life, which is just about to be released. So my background is that I was a physician in the UK. I also have a neuroscience background. I trained as a neurotherapist and was a developmental pediatrician. I'm a speaker and seminar leader. I run health and well-being workshops for businesses. I am a medical writer for Hearst Media, and I am a busy wife and mother. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the science of stress, why stress can sabotage your health, happiness, relationships, and success in everything you do, how to reduce your sources of stress. I'm going to introduce you to a concept called the toolkit for managing your stress, and we're going to end with a 2-minute meditation. Now, I would love you to grab a piece of paper and a pen. Take notes if you would like, and there's going to be an exercise about 3/4 of the way through the webinar, so I would love you to take part in that. People often ask me why I teach other people about how to manage their stress. Well, the answer is that it's because of my own stress. Now, my stress began when I was 18 and went off to medical school. It was a very, very big shock for me. It was long hours of study, it was very intense, and huge amounts of information to learn, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. And so 5 years of medical school was followed by several years of medicine, and this was extremely stressful. I worked for 3 years in hospital medicine, and my very first job was well over 100 hours a week, and it was my first kind of experience of being around people who were sick and dying and spending long periods of time with those people. And it was extremely stressful. Not only the long hours and the, being surrounded by people who were sick and dying, but also the other doctors were a big cause of stress. It's a very high pressure job. So those years for me were filled with stress. My health deteriorated. I really didn't look after myself during those years. And then I moved into a job in public health medicine, which was a lot less stressful. And then I had my first son. I have 2 children, and the early years of being a mother were very, very stressful for me. Both of my boys nearly died, and through necessity, I gave up my career as a doctor. I was later able to return to that, but I had several years of being at home with my children and then being very sick off and on, and that period was very stressful for me. And about 13 years ago, I started studying stress management, and I kind of became obsessed with learning techniques to manage my own stress and help my family manage their stress. And then when I became a coach, teaching this to the people that I worked with. And it's a real journey for me, and I'm still very much learning. So I would love to share with you some of the secrets that I've learned so that you don't have to spend so much time, energy, and money learning how to manage your stress. I hope you like the sound of that. As I say, I have a book coming out, and before I wrote my book, I wanted to know what people wanted, what mothers wanted, and I didn't want to assume that I knew what they wanted. So I did a survey called the Magic One Survey, and I asked mothers what they wanted more of and what they wanted less of in their life. And here are the things that mothers wanted less of. As you can see, the top thing is stress and overwhelm, which was reported by 44% of the people who replied to the survey. 22% said they didn't want to be overscheduled and overburdened. Some of these were the same people as the stress and overwhelm, but it was interesting. Some people used different terminology to describe the same thing. Household chores and clutter, 19%. Money worries, 19%. Anxiety and worry in general, 19%. And tiredness, 16%, which is often caused by stress. As you can see, stress came out as being a very, very big problem, and that probably won't surprise you, but the research was good to kind of confirm that this was a major problem in families. Last week when I put out the email about this, somebody replied to me and said, oh, but I like being stressed. And so I thought it would be good to begin by explaining what I mean by stress. Stress is the emotional and physical reaction to events in life. Now, these effects can be appropriate and positive, such as getting motivated and getting more work done. And this is the kind of stress that the lady who wrote to me last week was talking about. Or it can be inappropriate and negative, such as getting upset, angry, and overwhelmed. And I think you'll agree with me, we'd all like to avoid this last kind of stress if we can. So now for a bit of science. This is how stress works. Our brain perceives an event or even a thought to be a threat. And it sends nervous signals to the rest of the nervous system and throughout the brain to increase arousal and get the brain really awake and ready for action. And the other thing that happens is that it activates a cascade of hormones within the hormonal system. And this is known as the fight-flight response. Now I've added in freeze, and I'm going to explain that to you in a moment. So what this does within the body is it increases your heart rate, blood pressure, muscle tension, and breathing rate. And your digestion slows down because when your survival is under threat, your digestion is not so important. So this gets us ready to either deal with the stress or get away from the stress. And the third thing that isn't on this slide is to freeze. And when we were cave people, this would have involved us finding a corner of a cave to hide in or a bush to hide under and hoping that whatever it was that was threatening us would just leave us alone. And we see this kind of reaction in stress as well. Sometimes people, when they're under in an extremely stressful situation, freeze and they become paralyzed by their stress and are unable to react. So stress was really, really important for us when we were cave people. And as parents, it was particularly important because it was not only our survival, but the survival of our children that was important, which was why we needed to react when we were stressed. But the reality of the situation today is that real threats to our survival are extremely rare. And we find ourselves under chronic stress due to the events going on in our life. So we end up with a chronic overarousal of the brain and nervous system, chronic production of these stress hormones, mainly cortisol and adrenaline, which can only be sustained for a period of time. And you may have heard of something called adrenal fatigue. I've worked with a couple of people with adrenal fatigue where they've been under such severe chronic stress for a long, long period of time so that their body really can't keep up production any longer. You can also get an increase in heart rate, blood pressure, muscle tension, increase in breathing rate, and respiratory problems, and also problems with our digestion. The symptoms that this chronic stress can cause are that we can overreact to stressful events. Panic, exhaustion, headache, muscle tension or pain, chest pain, fatigue, stomach upset, sleep problems, anxiety, depression, restlessness, social withdrawal, lack of motivation or focus, irritability or anger, overeating and undereating, drug or alcohol abuse, and change in libido or sex drive. And the list goes on and on and on. And I'm sure all of you can identify some symptoms that you've had at some stage, physical and emotional symptoms that you've had that have been caused by stress. Now, in adults, stress can lead to increased risk of mental health problems, causing or worsening of physical health problems. And there's a lot of research which shows that stress increases your risk of heart attack, cancer, stroke, and immune system problems. It can cause weight gain due to emotional eating, increased appetite for carbohydrates, and weight gain in the abdominal area, which is very unhealthy for us. It can cause faster aging. Our cells, within our cells, the chromosomes have a protective cap on them, and research shows that when you're under severe chronic stress, those protective caps fall off our chromosomes, causing the cells to die quicker. And there's also research that shows that the collagen in our skin and connective tissue is damaged by severe chronic stress. And when you see somebody who looks much older after being under a long period of stress, that's probably because their collagen has been damaged in their skin. This can recover, so that's the good news. And ultimately, reduced performance in everything you do, whether it's housework or being the CEO of a company, your performance will be affected if you're under chronic stress. What about in children? Children experience stress early, even before they're born. And some stress is normal, and it's also necessary for survival. It causes us to develop skills that we need to cope and adapt to new and potentially threatening situations in our life. And as you know, as a parent, it's a real balancing act, how much you protect your children from stress and how much you allow them to experience some stress so they learn these coping strategies. It's very hard to get that balance right. And intensive or prolonged periods of stress for children can affect brain development and lead to a variety of short and long-term negative health effects. And there was an interesting study that came out in 2013. Every year in America, the American Psychological Association does a huge stress survey. And for the first time in 2013, they also asked teens about their stress. And their conclusion was, it is alarming that teens experience stress so similar to that of adults. It is even more concerning that they seem to underestimate the potential impact that stress has on their physical and mental health. Not surprising, because we adults are not very good at that either. And the stress level during the school year far exceeds what these kids believe to be healthy. And for children, for teenagers, they recorded that their stress level was on average 5.8 out of 10, whereas they thought 3.9 or below was healthy. Now, interestingly, parents, mothers, their average stress was 8.5 out of 10, and that was the average. So that is very worrying. Now, here's a question for you. Who is your child's top stress management role model? The answer is that you are. Even if your child is a teenager, they are still looking to you to learn how to manage their stress. Of course, as they get older, there's all sorts of other influences, but ultimately throughout their childhood, you, as the main carer for your child, whether you're a mother or a father, you are the main stress role models for your children. And I have a startling truth for you. If you are neglecting managing your own stress because you're just too busy, the startling truth is that your child and your family need you to be healthy. And your stress may put your health and well-being at risk, and it will have a big impact on your child and the rest of your family. So I urge you to do your child and family a huge favor and do something about your stress if it's significant. Now, the really, really good news is that anyone can learn to better manage or reduce their stress if they really want to. You can reverse some of the effects of stress. Remember those aging effects and health problem effects that I told you about. These can be reduced if you learn to manage your stress and even reversed. And you can significantly improve your performance if you learn to manage your stress. And you can also learn to buffer yourself from future stresses so that stress doesn't harm you so much in the future, because the reality of life is that stressful situations are going to occur. And if you can better learn to manage that stress when it comes up, then that's better for you and your whole family. So the benefits of learning to manage stress is that you will become a better role model for your child, as I just mentioned. You'll become a more effective parent. You'll be able to reduce confrontation in your family life and beyond. You'll be able to improve your relationships with your child and the rest of your family. And you'll be able to better understand your child's stress and help them manage it better. And you may even be able to make yourself feel better and live longer, which I think everybody wants that. So there are 3 steps to managing stress. The first is to learn to reduce your sources of stress. These can be internal, your thoughts, feelings, and memories, or external, people, things, circumstances, and events in your life. The second step is to improve the health of your body and brain. The reaction that you have to stress is very closely related to how healthy, particularly your brain is. And so that if you can improve the health of your body and brain, whenever you are in a stressful situation, you'll cope with it better. And the third step is to learn to reduce the impact of stress. And I'm going to introduce you to a stress management toolkit in a moment. So, remember I asked you to get a paper and pen? I'd love you to, if you've not been using them already, I'd love you to get them out now. We're going to talk about your sources of stress. So, there's a lot of research out there about the most common sources of stress, and they're here in this slide. Psychological problems, depression, anxiety, and worry are a common cause of stress. They cause the type of stress which is internal. It comes from our own thought processes, particularly in depression and anxiety. We tend to ruminate on the negative things in our life, and this causes us stress. Our physical health can also be a cause of our stress. Either being aware that you're not living a healthy lifestyle can stress you, or maybe you have some physical health problems. Now, of course, then there's family stress. Many of us live in families that are chaotic. There's lots of things going on. Parents have so many extra things that they need to fit into 24 hours a day that they have. And I work with many families who have children with chronic health problems or special needs. And of course, for these families, there is a much increased level of stress. Now, if you're like me and you're not great at managing your time, this can be a source of stress for you. You may have work pressures that stress you out. You may be stressed about where you live. It may be that you live in a country that you don't like. It may be your town. It may be your street, your neighborhood, or maybe it's even just your home. Perhaps you live in a house you don't like, or maybe you're just overwhelmed by mess and clutter. If that's you, I can totally relate. Perhaps financial problems are causing you stress at the moment. And then, of course, if any member of your family gets sick, this can be a source of stress. And as I speak, my 13-year-old fractured his ankle last week and had to have surgery. And this has just been a really big source of stress for me, and of course for him too. And it's added a lot of extra things to my schedule that I wasn't planning on. So yes, family health problems can be a big source of stress. Of course, then there's relationship problems with friends, family, with your children, with your partner. And lastly, personal growth. This is feeling like you're growing and progressing in life, learning new things, traveling, experiencing new events in your life, all of that kind of thing. When we may have a pretty good life otherwise, but if we feel like we're not growing and progressing, this can be a source of stress for us. The really fascinating thing about stress is it's all about your personal perspective. It's about the lens through which you see your own life. And I often say to people, I often have my clients say to me, oh, my partner or my child is stressed about something. I just don't understand why they would be stressed about that thing. And I always explain to them that stress is really, really personal. No one else can tell you what's stressing you, and you can never really appreciate why something else is stressing another person. So I've only put 2 options on this slide about what you can do to reduce your source of stress, but there really are 3 things. The first is that you can acknowledge these are your sources of stress and do absolutely nothing about it, in which case you're kind of choosing to stay stuck with your stress. The second thing is to learn to take action. Have a look through that list of sources of stress that you just came up with and ask yourself, is there something that I can do right now or in the next 24 hours that would reduce that source of stress? For example, if you're stressed because you're worried about your health and you've been delaying, putting off going to see a doctor, and I hear this very, very often, then that source of stress will be reduced when you have seen the doctor and you've taken action with that. Because uncertainty caused by worrying about your health is often a bigger cause of stress than actually just getting on with it. So I urge you, if you have things on your list that are causing you stress right now that you can get rid of and get them off your list, do that today. And the third thing is some of our sources of stress, we actually can't get rid of them. For example, if you have a sick child, you can't do anything to get rid of that. So what you need to do is to learn to deal with that stress so you cope with it better and so that it doesn't harm you. Step 2 is improving your health. Now, I tell people that health is a balancing act between your health liabilities and your health assets. Health assets are the things that you're doing in your life that are good for your health. Healthy diet, good hydration, engaging in positive thinking, self-regulation. This is learning to notice how your body and mind are feeling and learning to do something about it. Of course, exercise is very important. Good sleep habits, other healthy habits like eating breakfast every day or exercising, they're healthy habits. Positive relationships are really, really good for our health. I've put genetics on here. This may surprise you to see this on your list, but when I trained as a physician, we were told you could not change your genetics. But there's fascinating research coming out at the moment in the last kind of 5 years or so, which shows that many of our genes for chronic health problems, we can switch them on and off by changing our lifestyle. And I just find that absolutely fascinating. That increases our power to change our outcome. Then there's, of course, hygiene. If you're with somebody who's got a cold, then, try and make sure you wash your hands and you don't get too close to them if you're sneezing, that kind of thing. And of course, if you're traveling, taking precautions to prevent getting a tropical illness or the like. And then new learning. New learning is really, really important for us. And I just mentioned personal growth. Those 2 things tie in well together. So our health liabilities, those things that are bad for our health, include things like dehydration, unhealthy diet, inactivity, engaging in unhealthy habits, smoking being one of the worst of them, avoiding medical care when we've got health problems, is not good for your health. Contact with poisons, infections, engaging in things which might cause physical harm, emotional harm, including stress, extremes of weight, and again, I just talked about genetics. So step 3, as I said, is your stress management toolkit. Now, I work with many clients who have maybe 1 or 2 things that they use to manage their stress. Now, I urge them to develop a toolkit to get a list of several things that they can rely on to help them better manage their stress. Because the problem with relying on just one thing is that if you're suddenly not able to do it, then you have nothing to fall back on. I was working with a lady who was her pretty much only source of stress management was kickboxing, and she, when she wasn't traveling, would kickbox for 2 hours a day. Now, this lady was one of the people I was talking about who had adrenal fatigue. She had been stressed for such a long period of time. And she also, she was one of the parents that I worked with who had a child with special needs. And kickboxing was an amazing source of stress relief for her, except the problem was that she traveled a lot with her business. And when I began working with her, she was about to have a 2-week period of traveling when she really wasn't going to be able to exercise very much. She was going to be staying in a different hotel every night and have very little time to herself. And it was going to be very stressful. And so we talked about other things that she could add to her toolkit. And for her, we added in meditation and journaling were the 2 things that she added to her list. So a stress management toolkit is pretty much whatever works for you. So it may be things like lifestyle changes. You may find that if you eat better or exercise more, that this helps you manage your stress. Build positive relationships. Make a conscious effort to spend time with people who help you manage your stress. And those people who make your stress worse, spend less time with them. Engage in activities that put you in a positive state. Now, this may sound really, really silly, but I often work with people and they say to me, I don't know how to manage my stress. And so we talk about, a list of things that put them in a positive state. And at the end, I say to them, so why aren't you using those things to manage your stress? And they say to me, I just didn't think of it. So write a good long list of all the things that put you in a positive, relaxed state. Perhaps it's going for a walk in the woods, or maybe watching a comedy on TV. Whatever it is, then write it down so that when you're in a stress state, you don't have to be sat there wondering what you can do. You have the list right with you. Journaling is like having a conversation with your own subconscious mind, and it can be extremely powerful for helping you to manage your stress, particularly from the point of view of allowing you to have a better perspective on what's causing you stress. It's very interesting when you go back and look at your journal and see what's been stressing you, and you kind of sometimes feel a little bit silly because you realize that you were stressing over something that really, really wasn't that important. Then there's mindfulness practice. And this begins, I think it's important that this should always begin with diaphragmatic breathing. Meditation, relaxation, and prayer are all forms of mindfulness practice. Now, as a physician and neuroscience expert, I was a little bit skeptical about mindfulness practice until I started reading the research. The research, and the most research is on meditation, but meditation and other mindfulness practices probably do similar things. The research on meditation is extremely powerful. For me, the most compelling is that there are brain scans that show that meditation has a significant effect on the function of your brain, and it affects the areas of your brain which control your executive function. So how well you can focus and plan. It affects the part of your brain that makes you less clumsy. And check out the research, it's extremely compelling. And as I say, whatever it is that works for you, maybe it's spending time with a pet, as I say, going for a walk in nature, whatever it is that works for you to help you manage your stress. But what I urge you to do is to write it down so that when you're in a stress situation, you don't have to sit and think, you have the list there and you can go to it and you can draw something from that list to help you right then. I would like to introduce you to a very brief meditation. I'm going to begin by showing you how to do diaphragmatic breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing is something that most adults don't do during their waking hours very often. Diaphragmatic breathing can increase your oxygen levels by up to 60%, which is quite remarkable. Diaphragmatic breathing also has an effect on what's called your autonomic nervous system, and it causes calming of the whole nervous system. So if all you take away from this is learning how to do diaphragmatic breathing, that's great. It's an extremely powerful stress reliever, but I'm going to go on to do a brief meditation with you. Make yourself comfortable and put your right hand on your tummy, just above your tummy button, and focus on your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your hand as you breathe in and out. With the next breath out, blow out all the air from your lungs as if you're blowing up a big balloon. And as you breathe in, notice your tummy moves out. And as you breathe out, your tummy moves in. Breathing in and out. In and out. As you breathe in, you breathe in relaxation. As you breathe out all your worries. Now I want you to move your right hand to the area of your heart and focus once more on your breath. Feel the rise and fall of your hand as you breathe in and out. Now I want you to think of something that makes you feel happy. It may be the image of a loved one, the memory of a happy time, or something else. Focus on the happy thought and allow the happy thought to become a happy feeling. Notice the happy feeling in the area of your heart and allow it to spread throughout the whole of your body. Feel a positive, warm energy in your mind, your heart, and your body. Savor this feeling for a moment. Now, on the count of 3, I want you to open your eyes. And when you do, you will remain feeling relaxed and calm. 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes and gently stretch and bring your attention back to the room. So I hope that was a pleasant experience for you. If you struggled a little bit with that, don't worry about it. An awful lot of people really struggle to learn to let go and relax during meditation. I know I certainly did. It's been a long journey for me to learn to get relaxed when I'm meditating, because my mind is just so incredibly busy all the time. So, what can you do next for your stress? I really hope you found this presentation useful, and I may have given you enough tools to go and learn to manage your stress better. You can also get support from family or friends. Reach out, tell people that you're feeling stressed at the moment, and ask for their support. There are many, many self-help resources out there. Books, ebooks, CDs, DVDs, and many of them that you can borrow from the library or buy fairly inexpensively. In fact, my first self-help book I ever bought, I bought in a thrift store, and it really didn't cost very much at all. You can learn how to meditate. Again, there are lots of free resources out there. And in fact, I have a free meditation program if you're interested. It's a 14-day meditation program called Meditation for Moms, 4 as in the number 4. And it's a free 14-day meditation program, and they're just 5 minutes a day. You can attend a group course or workshop, or you may decide that your need is very, very urgent and you need some personal help or coaching. Before we end, I just want to very quickly tell you about my stress management program. If you have liked what you've heard today and you would like to learn more from me, I run a 4-week program. Every week, there's a weekly webinar similar to this one. You'll be asked to do transformational exercises to learn about your stress and how to manage it better. There's a Facebook forum where you can talk to other people who are taking the course and share ideas with them, and that's moderated by me. So if you want to ask a question, just ask it in the forum. You get access to my 14 meditations as video and as MP3, so you can download them to your phone and listen to them anytime you like. The course begins with a video called Introduction to Neuroscience, where I explain all the best bits of neuroscience and why it's important that we know about that and how it can benefit us and help us change very, very quickly when we understand it. You get a free copy of my book, Beyond Soccer Mum, Strategies for a Fabulous Balanced Life, shipped to you anywhere in the world. And because I don't want money to be a barrier, there are 3 levels of this course to suit every budget. If you want to find out more information about the programs, check out www.drleonaurarhodes.com/beyond stress. So the 3 programs are self-study course, which if you've listened to the webinar, there's a special button and you can get on this 4-week course for $47. If you would like to do a little bit more, you can do the self-study course plus a brain health questionnaire, which I will send to you. You fill out and return it to me, and I will evaluate it and send back a report with some recommendations, and you get a 1-hour coaching call included in that package. And the webinar offer for that is $127. And lastly, the Platinum program, for those of you who really want a little bit more of a personal approach, you get the self-study course, the brain health questionnaire, and 4 1-hour one-to-one coaching calls with me. And the price for this is $627. So thank you so much for attending, and I hope this has been really, really useful to you. Please reach out to me if you want any more information on how to manage your stress. My website is drleonaurarhodes.com, and it has my contact details on there. Now, I urge you to go out there and start creating a fabulous life for you and your family. Thank you so much for listening.